we're
I
running.
like your Christmas tree.
It has film canisters like spheres.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's awesome for ornaments. Oh, that's
Yeah,
an amazing. Okay, you know what? I'm doing that. I got to put a few of those on our tree. That's wicked. Nice.
yeah, it's great. Tenemos un invitado de extra lujo hoy. Y pues ya, estábamos un poco nerviosos en la mañana, pero ya pasó eso porque pues la neta es que es una persona que apoya muchísimo a la comunidad fotográfica en
Así
muchos
es.
sentidos. Entonces, pues estamos tranquilos de que va a ser una entrevista muy amena.
Y va a ser la primera entrevista en inglés, de hecho.
Exacto, hay que subtitular. Pues David,
Exacto.
presenta al invitado de lujo.
Bueno, pues está desde Londres. Hi Kyle, how are you?
Hey, doing good.
Hi Kyle, how are you?
Yeah, doing real good.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time, first of all. Thank you for being here, and we hope you like this chat, and I hope this will get you like more. I mean, a little bit of more followers here in Mexico, and because your YouTube channel and your podcast is a very valuable source of information and reviews and tutorials. Is like the perfect toolbox for someone who's starting in
Yes.
film photography, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah, that's
Always.
amazing. I mean, thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me on the show.
Well, thank you.
So, well, we will start with a very single question. Who is Kyle McDougall, and how do you describe your work and your photography work?
Yeah, so I'm a photographer working mostly, almost pretty much completely with film. I'm also a filmmaker, kind of lived this like uh, um, dual kind of profession life for a long time doing filmmaking and photography. And I feel like I'm just at the point where I'm starting to transition to photography full time. But I'm from Canada, just actually moved over to the UK. So I'm living pretty close to London as of the last couple months. And yeah, a lot of my work that I think people would know me for is mainly based in the American Southwest. But just basically wrapping up that project and moving on to some new work here, obviously with the move to a new country and having a new landscape around and stuff like that. And then I also have a YouTube channel, like you mentioned, and then I do a podcast as well, all centered around film photography.
Awesome. Kyle, which was your first professional work as photographer, and how do you see it right now? Your first project, like serious project. I mean, all projects are serious, but I mean, like
Yeah.
the one that puts you on the professional area for saying something.
Sure. So I mean, like I could go way back. My career has kind of been a bit of a roller coaster and a ton of zigs and zags and stuff. And for me, I actually didn't get into film as a medium until about 2017, and then I've been completely consumed by it since then. But I did photography for about 10 years before that. More like traditional landscape photography. And then I also did video production and filmmaking at the same time. So my first kind of professional work was in that photography realm way back when I went to school for film, but when I got out, I started working digital. So I was just like your typical budding photographer, not really knowing what they want to do. So I thought I would try weddings. So I shot one wedding and quickly realized that I don't want to ever shoot a wedding again.
One wedding and that was it.
Yeah, not for me. I'm not the right type of person. And then from there, I just started doing some freelance work, did some stuff for magazines, a lot of stuff in like the action sports world. So like a huge departure from what I'm doing now. So those would have been my first kind of professional gigs, I guess, if you want to call it. But really, from most of my career from like a business standpoint was video production. So that I ran my own businesses and stuff. And it wasn't really until 2017 when I got into film and it really kind of consumed me that I started working on what I would say is like my most serious body of work yet. Before that, doing the traditional landscape photography, you know, I wrote for magazines, I sold prints, I did some talks, I had a website and all that kind of stuff, but it always just felt like I was making like these greatest hits images, right? So it was like, go out and find like the most dramatic sunset and the most dramatic landscape,
Okay.
and then compile as many of those as possible. You know what I mean? So it was like nothing. It wasn't until I got into the film photography world, started learning about some of the, you know, some of the greats, I guess you would say, and discovering all these different genres of work, that I started seeing so much, I guess, new potential for projects done in different ways. You know, where the project is reliant on a wide variety of images. Some of them are quiet, some of them are loud. It's not just, you know, these, everything has to be flashy. So yeah, the work that I've been doing for the past 3 years, all the American Southwest stuff, I'm just wrapping it up, and I'm just working on actually publishing it as a book. So this would be like, for, even though I've done this for a long time professionally, video and photography, this for me is like my most personal kind of like professional work that I'm probably going to be most proud of, I would say.
Yeah, I think that happens when you start in film photography. Something happens and reboots like that creativity and that way of seeing photography. I don't know. It happened to me.
Yes,
In
also.
digital, it was like kind of a business side of photography or video production. And with film photography, it's more like personal. It's like very like deep projects that mean something for you, and it's something like that you want to say. That happened to me. I don't know if it was the same with you.
Yeah, in a way it was. And what's funny is, you know, like I never have been like one of those like film versus digital, one's better than the other, but I just look at like
Yeah.
how, and not saying that's what you're talking about, but I just look at like how different mediums and tools can kind of influence you and what they can expose you to. And for me, the film photography world just kind of exposed me to all of this work I didn't know about, and these different genres and this different way of working. And very much it sparked this different style of creativity and work that I had never really created before, like I was, you know, kind of just mentioned, going a little bit deeper. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's really cool is I've noticed, you know, a lot of people who start shooting with film and get into this world, you know, it's almost like they all of a sudden they're approaching things in this very different way that they never would have done before. Like
Yeah.
for, you know, the most interesting thing for me is like, you know, talking about doing that traditional landscape work in the past, it's like I wouldn't go out and make an image unless there was like the perfect sunset with the most dramatic clouds and like everything came together. And then, you know, for the work my most recent portfolio, I'm shooting at like 1 p.m. in the middle of the day in like full sun in the desert, like
Yeah.
just complete different set of conditions. And not to say that would have worked for my older work, but it's really cool how you can find something and it can be so different and it can really kind of hook you.
Yes. Kyle, about your projects, and I know for sure that you have all your YouTube channel about film photography, but also you have your a podcast, the
Mm-hmm.
Contact Sheet podcast. What is that about?
Yeah, so that was really just kind of like another outlet for me as a creative. Like I love YouTube, but I find the podcast gives me a way to just kind of uh I guess like freewheel things a little more. Like it's a little more just conversational and you're going off the cuff. And not that I try to make my YouTube like really scripted. I try and stay away from that, but it is a little more structured and stuff. So the podcast is just a way to maybe talk about some things that are just on my mind. A lot of the smaller episodes I've been doing lately have been, you know, just rambling off some thoughts and some opinions, or just having conversations like this with other photographers, which, you know, I also don't get to do on the YouTube channel. So it's like another outlet for me as a creative to you know, keep getting my voice out there, trying to help people, but do it in a different way than what I'm doing already with some other things.
Yeah, great. Uh, well, talking about your podcast and the last episode you published about the film photography boom, um, it is a boom in
Yes.
here in Mexico. It has never died. Really, it really never died. But right now, it's getting stronger and stronger, and very young people are getting into film photography. I don't know if it's just a trend or anything, but I like that if the community grows, the film photography grows, and we'll get eventually new cameras, new emulsions, new film, and I think that is great. That's the good part. How do you see this boom? Like, I don't know if you have like international input of how it's growing, the film photography, but how do you see it from your point of view, from your perspective?
Yeah, all I can kind of comment on is just really what I see online because that's most of my interaction with everyone. But it just seems like, the people who I'm discovering or the people who I'm meeting, it's from all over. Like, we're having a conversation right now. You guys are in Mexico City. I'm in the
Yeah.
UK. I was in Canada. There's people all over Europe. Like, it just seems like the popularity of it on a global scale is growing a ton. So I can kind of just look at it from that way, but I think it is something that's happening all over the place. And I think it's amazing. Kind of like I mentioned in my podcast episode, just because not only is it cool to see film grow, and then there's, the things that come with that, like new film stocks and other companies like say Intrepid releasing, 4x5 camera and lomography making some stuff, but just the community is so important that's growing with this. And it's not to say that other communities and other creative forms aren't great, but the film photography community just seems to be special in my opinion. So that's why I wanted to release that last episode. And like for anyone who didn't hear it, it was a little bit of like it was just an opinion piece about, every now and then you get people who kind of want to kind of be like try and be a gatekeeper in this community and tell people, about like complain about prices going up for cameras and this and that. So I just want to like squash as much of that as possible because, all of us came into this world at a different point, like this film photography world. So, none of us should ever be allowed to get to a point where we can start telling other people who's allowed in and who's not allowed in. Right, like we all were beginners at one point in this world. So
Yes.
I just want to see it keep growing, and that just means the community grows and there are more connections and more people to meet and more work to be created, which is really cool.
And how can you handle this ego fighting with another photographers and also no photographers because there is a lot of people saying things and critiquing maybe styles or maybe prices, as you said.
Yeah,
How did you fight about that?
so I think the key is not to try like those. You don't go and try and change those people's minds and say like, hey, this isn't cool, you shouldn't do that, because I mean they're saying a lot about themselves already if they feel the need to
Yeah.
be like that. So my whole goal is to try and talk about this and put that stuff out there so people can hear it who maybe would be affected by those people. But since they hear maybe a podcast I do saying like don't listen to those people, there's like one out of 100 you'll meet, the other 99 are amazing, like ignore that kind of stuff. Basically just try and put out positive vibes and a different spin on it so anyone who may be affected by those gatekeepers and those critics maybe isn't as affected when they come across that stuff. Because I've certainly noticed it's this stuff isn't just specific to the photography community. I mean, those people are everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is since I posted that podcast episode, I've had a couple of people reach out and say like, yeah, like, I've been surrounded by someone like that before, just basically telling me experiences of, having people around them who are, making fun of other photographers' work and this and that. And it's just, that is a personal issue that people have, and it says a lot about the people saying it. So I just think it's you can combat it by doing the opposite and trying to support people and encourage people.
Of course.
Yeah, great. Um, Kyle, I, I'm gonna ask this: how was the transition from being like a filmmaker full time, running your own business, to start a project like an American Mile? I think it was.
Yeah.
Uh, how was it? It was a smooth transition. It was a like a shocker, or how was it?
So what's really interesting? I'm in this transition phase still. I mean,
Well,
an American Mile, that project, that's purely like a passion project. My goal, it may like when I eventually publish it, I don't. it may make me a little bit of money. I don't know. Like, it's not a financial decision at all, really. It's more of like, I want to see this come to life and I want to, publish it and put it out there. But for me, really, it's making the transition to doing this work full time, like YouTube, podcasts, online courses, like basically transitioning to being like this educator, online photographer. I don't even know what a title would be. So it's been really strange because, like I said, for most of my career, I was doing video production and filmmaking, which is a very different world, right? Because you have a service that you're offering a business, right? You're making someone something for their business. Whereas now it's like, now the business model's 100% different because it's me, right? It's like, I am trying to help people basically and find a way to, generate income from doing that in a way that fits my values, right? Because there's opportunities out there, as say like a YouTube channel grows and as an audience grows, you get more opportunities from companies, but like 95% of them never make any sense, right? So it's been a really interesting change so far, but it's a good challenge and it's good to switch things up every now and then.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds scary at the beginning, but I think it's worth it. That kind of change, if it's really inside you and is burning you from inside, you should do it.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Kyle, how can you stay doing what you like without any incomes, and how do you do it? Because there is maybe that's a tricky part of doing what you like, because you need to survive in any way, right? So how do you do it?
Yeah, so it's been well, I mean, the most interesting part is I decided to do this while I was moving to a new country with my wife and our daughter, and then COVID happened. Like there's a lot that's been going on this year that's kind of made things even more of a challenge. But for me, I like, if I was to give any advice to anyone, I started building my YouTube channel and like more of like my online community back in 2017. So I've been doing it for 2 years while I was doing video production, I was doing this. And I feel like you have to almost do that until there's this really kind of awkward middle point where it's like, I think I can break free now, but it's going to be tough for 6 months or a year. So I think if there's something that you want to go and pursue, if it's something you love, don't rush it. Like, I think sometimes people will be like, oh, I want to make money off of my photography right away. I have to make money. And I think that can lead to a lot of problems because all of a sudden you aren't taking the time to like build up a community, build up trust. You're just trying to hawk items on people right away. Right. So you're like, buy this for sale, that for sale. And I think for me, it's really important that, like, yes, I want to make my living this way but the reason I want to do that is because I love trying to help people enjoy their work more and also make better work and just, enjoy their creative lives more. So it's something I care so much about. So I think it's like, take the time to build up a community, add value to the community, do all these things. So you have this community where people are, want to support you when you finally say, hey, I have this for sale. Then people are like, yeah, like, yes, I want to buy that from you, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any clear answer. I think it's just, it's a long process. And for a long time, you have to juggle multiple hats. If that's, working a different job while you build things up, I think the key is just not to rush things.
Yeah, really true. Yeah, I mean, like adding this knowledge and growing this community, it gives not only you, gives the community itself like this how can I say it, it makes the new photographers like a little bit more confident to share things if the community is like
Friendly.
bonded and there's no negative critique and this like ranting about stuff. So we need to build that type of community to make easier to new photographers to make this transition to film photography full time.
Yeah. And what's so funny is, like, I think about this often and I'm just like, there's so much to love about what we do, right? Like, the quirky old cameras and the weird old cameras are amazing. The images everyone's making, the work people's creating, just the community out there. Like, there's so many things to be like, to enjoy and be excited about and be happy about. So like, I just want to kind of prop that up as much as possible. And that's not to say like, my goal isn't to just tell everyone they're amazing and that no one's doing anything wrong. But I think the important thing is like, that I never want to be one of those people who just goes around to random people I don't know, telling them why they're doing things wrong. Like, I think it's important to build a community where if someone reaches out to one another and says like, hey, can I get like, this is my body of work I've been, doing for the past 2 years. I would love you to take a look and give me your opinion on it. Like someone you trust, whose work you respect, who will give you their honest critique. That stuff is so important. But people often confuse that. Like sometimes, people will be like, oh, no one can take any criticism anymore. But there's such a difference between some random person that you don't know on the internet and you've never seen their work telling you that your images suck versus like someone you respect and maybe admire or whatever, really taking the time to look at your work and say, hey, this is working, but maybe you could improve things here a little bit. So I think that is the ultimate goal for like a strong community, is just have something that's encouraging, like welcoming, supportive, and also is going to help people grow in the best way possible.
Yeah, so true. That constructive feedback is what we need. Like you said, from people you trust, not any random guy that you didn't even ask his opinion, and he's like shitting your work or anything.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that does affect people at times, right? Because there is a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot. There are people out there though like that, right? And I think for people who maybe aren't as good at dealing with that, they can let those critics really kind of maybe stop them from putting their work out there, or make them a little timid from expressing themselves how they should be, right? Because they're worried about just random assholes on the internet.
Actually, yes, so right. There is a lot of assholes.
Yeah. But you know what? So it's funny. I did that podcast about it. It seems like I've been talking about this stuff a lot recently, and I always want to be careful in a way, because there's so much amazing stuff in the film photography community. Like when I talk about these critics and these random people kind of knocking people down, like that stuff. Fortunately, that stuff isn't super common. It just is out there. But on a daily basis, I would say like 99% of the stuff I run into in the film photography community is just supportive people, really amazing relationships and stuff. So I always like to add that note in where I'm like, I am talking about this, but I don't want to focus on it 100% because I don't want to make it seem worse than it is, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a photographer, you need to print your work. Does that make a change in how you see photography, how you see photography as a business? Do you think that that's an important thing to do?
I think from like a personal standpoint, it's really important, just because, especially if you've never printed your work before, it takes on a different life. It really does. And that can influence the way you see things as well when you're out creating images. Sometimes if you're thinking of the final print, it can almost give images more value and you can see them in a different way, especially to nowadays. And like, this is speaking from experience, like, we all post our work on Instagram and social media so much, and we're on our phones so much that you can go like a month or something without looking at a book or looking at a print or anything. So you're basically looking at images that are like 2.5 inches wide. Yet, we're shooting on like 6x7 medium format cameras that could print 40 inches wide. So I do think it's really important. I think if there's people out there who haven't printed their work, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's like the final process. The tricky part is like finding an outlet of what to do with those images. So you can print for yourself and you could put them in a little portfolio box or something. That would be pretty cool. From a business standpoint, it's certainly another avenue for generating income. It is a tough one because it's a little tricky to learn how to approach it, right? Because it's like, do you do higher value, larger limited edition prints? Do you do smaller, cheaper prints? And then it depends on your audience. And then do you print yourself or do you send out for printing? I mean, I've been through it all over the last 10 years. I've owned 3 different printers. Some of them will end up sitting for 3 months, and then they don't work anymore. And like, right now for me, I'm kind of going after the like limited edition, little bit higher value prints. But I mean, it is another outlet for like generating revenue if you're trying to do your photography as a business, for sure. It's just kind of finding a way to, I guess, market it and whatnot.
Kyle, and what about your work with Portra? I know for sure that you are a big fan of Portra 400, but and I told you that your work is have a few similarities with Fred Herzog works, and I know well you told me that you are a big fan from Fred Herzog,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
how why Portra, why that film, and why shoot with Portra?
Yeah, so it's cool. One of the things that I really loved about film when I got back into it is in 2017 when I made the switch from digital, I was pretty much, fresh into the world. That's kind of how my YouTube channel was born. Is just like, okay, there's a lot of stuff I don't understand, right? Like I don't scanning or exposure, like all of these things. Like I know I'm a technically skilled as like a digital photographer, but you jump into film and there's a lot of things that are different. So for me, a big part of that process at the start was just to have like being curious and trying out different film stocks. And as I tried some out, then I started to wonder about, exposure with them and different capabilities. And I was on like a big 12-month road trip when I started shooting film, living out of a trailer. Me and my wife, we went across the US and stuff. So I was just shooting different film stocks. And that's when I got into the Southwest and I started shooting some portrait just by chance. And it really, I just enjoyed the way that it rendered the tones and the colors and stuff out in the desert. There's a lot of kind of like tans and browns, and then a lot of open sky, which is blue. So it just worked great. And then it's obviously super flexible as well. So especially if you're getting into film and, learning how to meter and stuff like that, which is so funny to say, because like the funniest thing for me as a digital photographer coming over to film is like I had worked as a digital photographer for a long time, and then I switched to film, and I'm just like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like I haven't thought about light metering forever, right? Because I'm just like, check my histogram on the back of the screen. So
yeah, of course.
But yeah, so that's how I came to love portrait. But I think I mentioned to you when we were talking earlier,
Yes.
David, that now that I'm here in the UK, I've shot some portrait, and I'm like, oh, I'm not enjoying it anymore. So I think it all depends on like the landscape, the tones, the colors around you, all that kind of stuff.
And right now for you is more black and white work, right?
Well, so what's interesting is I've just started creating some new work, a new body of work here a little bit. And I started shooting some Portra 160 first, all 6.7. And then I got the images back and I scanned them, and I'm just like, I was not happy with the conversions. I'm just like, something like, again, it all came back to the colors, right? Because here in the UK, it's a lot of green, or it's a lot of like midtones and stuff. So I actually like did a black and white conversion in Lightroom on one of my Portra 160 images, and I'm like, oh, wait, like just playing around. Like for me, I don't get too attached to like, like, oh, it's I shot it on color, it's got to be color. I mean, I've switched to black and white now, but that kind of when I did that, I was like, oh, like, because I'd never shot black and white before really much, and I'm just like, maybe it looked really good, and I'm like, maybe this is what suits this landscape the best. Overcast skies, like really kind of moody clouds, a lot of midtones. So now I've started, I know the cool thing is now I don't know anything about the world of black and white. So I started shooting HP5, which everyone is telling me is like the Portra 400 of the black and white world. And now I'm like, digging into research, like, oh, what is Tri-X like? And what's, FP, I think Ilford does FP4 and all this. So yeah, it's kind of a new world for me again, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a completely new world, because you have the film stocks, you have the developers and like agitation techniques, and to boost your contrast or your grain. It's crazy. It's like a huge world. More than it doesn't have color, but it has contrast, grayscale, tone, grain, everything. It's crazy. Black and white. It seems easy. I think it's a little bit more complicated than color.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah, it's a different way of viewing the world as well, right? When you're out looking at things, you got to think about how are like different colors going to translate to like tones. Sometimes there might be two drastically different colors, and they might render as a very similar tone when they're black and white. So it's yeah, it's fun though. I love that kind of stuff, you know, experimenting, learning new challenges, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned right away scanning. What's your favorite scanner or digitizing technique? What do you use? Do you use the most? What give you the best results? I know there's no straight answer for that. Everybody has his own like workflow, but what's your favorite?
My favorite is none of them, but I'm half joking. I have, you know, I love scanning at home just because the control, right, is amazing, and there's nothing worse than, you know, sending your. Most of the time, you can get really amazing lab scans done, depending on the lab you use. But there's nothing worse getting bad scans back, right, for images you're excited about. So for me, I've settled on. I have a Nikon super cool scan 9000, which is like a medium format N35 film scanner from like 2004, but it was like the scanner back in the day. So I actually found one brand new in the box before I moved to the UK. So I bought it and then shipped it over.
Wow.
It wasn't cheap though, but
it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. So because all I'm shooting now is 6x7, which is like my go-to format. So for me with this cool scan and the 6x7, you know, it's like the first time where I was using a flatbed before that, and you know, you scan even a large negative and you're kind of just like, shouldn't it be more detailed than that? Like if you develop a workflow, you can get really good results. But you know, the first time I used the cool scan, I'm just like this is what I was waiting for. Like I felt like it was finally, you know, really making the most of those negatives and kind of giving me what I want. So now the issue is just trying to get the film flat in the holders. That's a whole nother different story.
Yeah, that's the challenge with that scanner. I have used that scanner back in 2010, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, about, and it was crazy. The quality is crazy. I mean, for me, it's a little bit slow.
It is,
but it's worth it. It's worth it totally.
Yeah, that's the biggest downside is it's slow. But again, for the type of work that I do, you know, I'm shooting 6.7. I'm not shooting a ton. You know, like usually when I get my film developed, you know, there might be a handful of images that I actually want to scan and stuff like that. So yeah, it all depends, right? If you are someone who shoots like 35 and you're using something like that, and you're doing like street photography or like it would take forever. So, but yeah, for me, that's what I've been loving. And then I just use View Scan and then Negative Lab Pro for my conversions, and I've been really happy with that as a workflow.
So you're shooting on 6.4.7, but which one is your ultimate camera for it?
So Pentax 672 is my go-to. I bought that camera back in 2017 when I started, and then you know, like we all do, when you get into this world, you just want to experiment with different cameras. So I fell in love with it, but I was like, oh, what about a Mamiya RB67? Maybe I'll try that. So I sold the Pentax, bought a Mamiya, which was a great camera, but I am very much like an SLR guy. I like holding a camera up to my eye. I like the 672 with the grip. I like the portability of it. So I ended up rebuying it for a lot more money a year later. But I'm at the point right now where, like, you know, I love the gear in the film photography world. It's super fun. But now, like, you know, I kind of got past that phase a little bit where, like, I still like playing with the cameras and stuff, but like I'm creating my work. I just want the tool that suits me best, that's going to do the job so I can make the images I want. So that's why I'm kind of locked into that system. It just suits me the best. I have two lenses, a 105 and a 75, which is like the widest I'd go or the longest I'd go. And so like everything, I know it works. I'm happy with it, and it just kind of stays out of the way now when I'm out making images, which is kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, and now that you're in a project, you really need consistency. So you like you say, you're locked in one gear and one like film stock, because that's what you need for your project. But I think experimenting, it's a great thing, because maybe you find a format or a lens or a camera that you didn't even think of like seriously buying it, and you love that, you try it, and maybe you get it, you borrow one, you use it, and you fall in love and you buy it, and maybe that's your next tool for your future project.
Actually, I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
your video about the Nikon S2, and
Oh yeah.
you said that you didn't like the rangefinder system, but you saw that camera and said, okay, I will buy it.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is I found that camera in when I was on that big road trip. I was stopping at like, thrift stores and this and that. And we were on some like back roads. I think it was in like Louisiana in the southern states. And there was like this old service station in the middle of nowhere that was like closed down. And the guy actually we stopped. There was a guy there inside, the old owner, and he let us in to look around. And he had that camera randomly behind a shelf with like an old gas station. And I think he sold it to me for like $50 or something. It was
What?
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And
Come
at the time I
on.
didn't really know much about it. I was just like, oh, it's a cool Nikon rangefinder. And now you look at the prices even now and it's like,
Yeah.
whoa. But the thing with gear that I've always looked at is like, I mean, I think my like overarching belief in this whole creative world is like, I think the number one goal for people is just to like do whatever you enjoy and what is fun to you, right? So sometimes you'll get people who are like, it's not about the gear, and at some point you got to like, just lock into something, which I think is important if you are really focused on like creating a body of work. But at the same time, like if you just like gear and you want to for the next 40 years shoot with every single film camera on earth or something, if that's what makes you happy, like I think that's amazing, you should do that too. But what's funny is like, so the my project in American Mile, the Southwest stuff, that was shot over 3 years, and it was kind of during this entry back into the film world. So I shot a lot of 35, mainly portrait, but I also shot 645 because I was playing around with cameras, and I also shot 6x7. So now that I'm starting to put that together, for me, like I'm a very like detailed person, so it's bugging me because I'm just like, what, like why isn't it all 35 so the aspect ratios match and stuff? But the person who I'm working with doing the book is kind of like, it's like, it is fine. I feel good with this new project that I'm sticking to one aspect ratio and one format, but I still think like, if you shoot multi-format, you can put things together. There's ways to sequence them and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I actually have it, the Nikon S3 right here.
Oh, in black.
Yeah,
Wow.
black one.
That's a nice looking camera.
I'm in love with this camera. It's the 35 millimeter camera that I use like every day.
That's a nice looking camera. Don't let that one go.
Yeah. No, I won't. So, Kyle, have you ever been shooting in Mexico or Latin
Never.
America or something?
No, never
Would you
been
like to?
Yeah, I've never even been to Mexico. The closest I would have been is when we were doing our trip. We were down along the border a lot when we were in the south
And
in America, but we never made it into Mexico, unfortunately.
which border? Texas.
We would have been Texas, and then we would have also been Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's suppose you come to Mexico, but you can only bring one 35 millimeter camera. Which one would it be?
30. It's got to be 35.
Yes.
That's the only thing that I
At
don't know.
customs,
At customs they tell you can only bring one camera.
Okay.
35
Gotcha.
millimeter. Which
Oh,
one would it be?
I don't. Well, I don't really shoot 35, so that's going to be a problem. I'd have to buy something. But okay. So right now I got this little
okay.
Olympus XA. So I'm
Right.
doing like
Okay.
I'm doing just a review on it for the channel. So I'd probably go with the camera that I use to shoot most of my 35 work for that project. So I was shooting a Contax RTS,
Mhm.
and then Contax 35 to 70 zoom, which is like my favorite lens ever. So that'd probably be my go-to.
Okay, perfect. Which film would you bring?
Oh, for Mexico, I'd probably do Portra
Yeah.
400. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd work good there.
The landscapes, will work fine. That.
And
Yeah.
all the landscapes and the urban landscapes, they are very colorful. So Portra will be the best option.
Nice.
So Kyle, what do you think is next for the film community? What do you think? Because we are living now that boom that you said on your podcast. But what do you think that is next for the film community? Because as Beto said at the beginning, maybe it's a trend, maybe it's something that will be a good memory in a few years, maybe for some people, for others not. But for you, what is next for for the film community?
Yeah, you know what? I really don't. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think it's a trend because I think something is a trend when it kind of piques someone's interest because they see it somewhere and it's becoming, um, really popular. And then you try it, but it doesn't really like it just gives you a little bit of satisfaction and then that
Yeah,
trend goes away kind of thing. But I think for the film photography community, like the reason it's growing is because people are really getting consumed with it and it's playing a big role in the work that they're creating and it's so people are making projects and making books and there's this community that's happening and people are discovering different genres. So I just think there's this kind of depth to it that is really kind of I don't know if authentic's the right word, but it's just I feel like it's deeper than a trend. I feel like a trend is something that you see and you're like, I want to try that out, and you try it and then you're like, that was kind of cool. But the fact that so many people are like getting consumed by this and buying like 40 different film cameras and,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Everyone I know just get hooked like that.
yeah,
They
so I
start
think
with one point and shoot, and then the next day they have like like you say, 45 cameras and
yeah,
shooting
it's
film.
so I think for those reasons I think it's going to keep growing. And the cool thing is like you know I think it's good for the manufacturers, right? Like there's a way bigger demand for film and all that kind of stuff. I know prices have just recently gone up, but I think people kind of like to comment on that, but I think it's probably a pretty weird situation for some of the like film manufacturers because like it wasn't that long ago that they probably thought things were like on the out and
yeah,
were probably
Yeah.
downsizing and stuff. So I think that it's going to keep growing. Costs are going up a little bit right now for stuff like film, but I think at some point they I don't think that's going to keep happening. Um, and then, we're seeing people getting creative, like a lot of people getting creative with like 3D printing and people coming out with like, negative supplies, coming out with like scanning. Like there's a lot of new products launching, not too many cameras right now, but there's just a lot of new stuff happening based off of, the demand and people trying to solve these problems that we now have with the new kind of world of film photography. So I think I can only see it getting more popular.
Yeah, that's great. It's really crazy how he's growing, how creative the people is getting to, like you say, scanning, like adapting for film to, that it's not made anymore. Adapters for
Oh yeah.
cameras and everything.
Yeah.
That's great because that's the way you don't let a camera that oh no, I can find film for that anymore, so I won't use it. No, there's a lot of 3D printer files you can download and
yeah,
print your adapters, and I think that's great. It's awesome. It like what we are expecting of technology and like forums in internet, that this knowledge and share it is it's the real uh, benefit of the community, the close community. It's great. I think it's a great time to be alive right now.
yes. Actually, we thought that some technology obsolete, but the new technology brings back that old technology. So I think it's a perfect match.
I,
Yes.
I agree. Someone just needs to make like a brand new $1,000 Cool Scan 9000 with a warranty. That would be
Wow,
cool.
with warranty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm waiting for that. So we aren't like gambling on these, like buying a 15-year-old scanner that could potentially break and all your money's gone.
Yeah, you use it, and then when you turn it off and store it in a safe box or something like that.
every time I go to scan, I'm like, yes, it still turns on and it's working.
Yeah. Kyle, I've heard in the last episode of your podcast, your new email series, Field Notes.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it a little bit?
Yeah. So, it's similar to the podcast, just like another kind of creative outlet for me. So I'm trying to use all these things like I'm trying to think like, okay, what else could I do to help people out? And what is a way that I can do it that I'm not doing right now? So, like I said, the YouTube, as much as it isn't, I try not to make it scripted. It's different than my podcast, right? The podcast is a little more conversational, opinion based. And then the newsletter I wanted to do, just because I think like that's another opportunity to build a community, right? Because if someone gives you their email address, that's a really like personal way to get in touch with them. So anyone that's joining that is kind of like a community where it's like, okay, these people want to hear from me, and now I can, send out, whatever I think is going to be of value. I'm not trying to be like some expert or something, because there's a ton of stuff that I still need to learn and will always need to learn. But I'm just trying to think of like, okay, what experiences have I had? What education have I had? What tests have I done? So really the field notes is going to be like, I'm starting to do Q&A sessions, which I think is super helpful. I also want to use that as like an outlet to talk about, just like reflect on some of my like experiences throughout this like 12 years of doing photography and video full time, right? Like maybe some like funny experiences or some like fails that, I learned something from that I can kind of share. So really as a whole, it's just like another way to like build this type of community and connect people and like try and share, some advice or some education or something like that.
Yet another content, awesome content that you already do a lot for the film community. Like
Yes.
your YouTube channel is a must for every photographer that's like starting with film. It's great. I mean,
Beto, and you say that it's a free online course for everyone.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, really great, and we're thankful for that. And I really enjoy the your videos about exposure limits of film stocks. It's great. It's like finally someone has done that, and we're seeing the results. Like, and crazy stuff like 6 stops of overexposure and 6 stops underexposure. So you can really learn in a couple of minutes about a film stock, and it's like a shortcut, and even can save money for the people that's starting to film photography. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I mean, I think for me, all of these, like, putting out all this content, I think what the big thing is like, for so long, my professional career was focused on like, I would like a lot of the video work I was doing was like commercial work. I've done some short documentary films, which were like my passion projects, but a lot of the work was like commercial work and corporate work, and, like for some exciting projects and exciting brands. But I got to a point where I'm like, some of it started to get a little bit ego driven from like on my part. And then,
Okay.
and then I got to a point where I'm just like, I'm not, like I'm putting all this time and energy into these things. I'm making a living, which is important, but like the work isn't fulfilling anymore, cause it just feels like you're sending this thing out to this company and then like it's gone. Right. Sorry guys,
Yeah.
1 sec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bear with me. My headphones died.
Oh, okay.
Still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
But yeah, so for me, I think over the past 3 years, as I've started to, share content and build up these platforms, I think really over the last year, it's clicked. And this for me is really like the most fulfilling work. It's so much different than before. It's like, okay, now I can put all that time and energy into the stuff that I was doing before, but I can do it in a way that's like helping people. And I have this direct connection with those people. So it's just like, I feel like it's a way to finally give back and help other people, which for me is way more rewarding than the work that I was doing previously. So just trying to put out whatever I can basically and find a way to manage it all.
Kyle, how do you feel be part of as Jason from Grainy Days said, the film photography Avengers from YouTube?
That was
You are
pretty funny
part. you are part of that that team.
Yeah, which is fun. Yeah, it's, you know, what's cool is like, when I started my channel, it purely just started out of like when I started doing those exposure tests and stuff, and I'm like, oh, you know, obviously I had a passion for video production, so I'm like, maybe this gives me an outlet to kind of feed that creative urge as well for YouTube, because I treat the videos I make very much like stories and this and that. But it's always been, and I've said this before on some podcasts, but my, like, the purpose of my videos, like, I never wanted to make a channel where it was like, here's me, like, come watch me here, I'm doing this now, come watch me do more stuff, right? Like I've, and I'm not saying that's wrong. You know, I think people should do whatever they kind of feel like it's best for them. But I think for me, it's like every video I put out, I want there to be a purpose behind it, right? So either like some sort of message or some sort of advice or some sort of information or education, like something that someone can take away from it other than just, you know, watching me do something. So it's been cool though to see, you know, you look at Jason posted something like that, and which was made me laugh. But it was cool just to see all those kind of people, and you're like, for me, it was just a reminder of like, again, this community that's built up, right? And all these people who have took the time to kind of put themselves out there and try and share information. Like, you know, all of those people, like a lot of the other people on YouTube in the film photography world, I feel like are doing very similar things. You know, people are, a lot of the content is like trying to help other people out and share education and information and all this kind of stuff. So it's cool to see that all align. And yeah, it was funny when he said that, but it was neat. It was just a reminder of like how this community is growing, which is awesome.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny, and I think that we have different type of content. That we have tutorials, reviews, we have knowledge sharing, but we also need humor, and I think
Totally.
Jason, like, it's like I dig a lot his kind of humor. So it's like a stand-up comedy about film photography with real photography and film stocks reviews. It's like, it's great. I like it a lot.
Yeah, his stuff's hilarious. I'm always like, how do you write these scripts? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But no, and I think that's the really cool thing. And I think that's important, you know, going back to talking about like the purpose behind my channel since I started. I think that's one of the most important things when you jump on, if you're going to jump on YouTube or something like that, is like, you got to be yourself and do what feels right to you. Cause that's what we need, is like this variety in content, right? I think often people will jump on these platforms and maybe want to try and like start building a platform, and they just take all of this advice on like the do's and don'ts, but that just makes them become someone who, like, they aren't, right? Like, you need to be the person you are with the intentions that feel right to you. And then, you know, that's when you kind of get that variety. And I mean, Jason's channel is just so perfect in that way. It's like, you know, so unique. It's hilarious. You can tell that he's not putting on a show. You can tell that's just him in real life and his humor and his personality, which is awesome.
Yes.
It is great. Also, like my YouTube subscriptions are everything about film photography and maybe one about music or something like that. But we're really thankful for that content, and it is great to wake up every morning and have this kind of variety of content about film. So it's great. It makes the day start like with the right foot.
For
Actually,
sure.
I laugh a lot because on Willem Berbick YouTube channel, when he uploads some videos, there are some guys that may write a comment like, "Oh my God, yes, my day is perfect because Willem upload a video. Oh, I saw Willem face." And I click or something like that, and it's like it's the community is perfect because it's like all days from TV that you are waiting for a show, and suddenly there is on Sunday we have a new video from William. On Monday we have a new video from Kyle, and all the week is full of content about this topic, and that's the way, that's the best way to grow up this community actually.
Yeah.
We had a lot of content.
Yeah, I agree. And the cool thing is like, in my opinion, there's no ego. like all, you know,
Yeah.
all of those, like the people who are out there making content and stuff like that, like, you know, you can reach out to and chat with, and everyone's just there to like help and support one another. Like anyone that I've touched base with on the YouTube platform, like other creators and stuff, like everyone's just super cool. No one has an ego. And I think that's really amazing to see, you know, in a community, because I think that can be rare at times, right? There's always going to be like that one person or those two people, but I haven't run into that yet, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really great. So Kyle, we don't want to take much of your time, so we are really thankful that you've been here to chat a little bit about you, about the film community, the film boom around the world, and well, yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Maybe one last question is,
Sure.
what is next for you?
Learning how to put this content out and not go insane. Yeah, like jokingly. I mean, it's funny because we talked about the newsletter, which is like another thing. When I layer another thing on, I'm just like, all right, better like get good at scheduling. But no, from like a personal and like project standpoint, like I'm really excited. You know, new country for me. Just wrapping up that work, obviously in the Southwest. I won't be making any more of that. So yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a new beginning in a way, and excited to just take my time and like explore England and create work for the fun of it, and work on this project and just be patient and see where things go. And then other than that, just keep on, helping the film community grow and having conversations like this, and meeting people like you guys, and just
Thanks, man.
enjoying it all.
And please, if
Thank
you
you.
go to Scotland, you have to bring your Fuji 400p8
400H.
Yeah,
H
yeah.
Because of
for
the
landscape,
green.
because there is a lot of green.
All right, I'll do it for you. I'll take a
Okay.
break from the black and white. I'll shoot a roll for you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah,
No, thank you very much
So-
for this conversation.
absolutely.
So when you're in Mexico, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll make a photo walk or a guided tour or something.
Yeah, 100%. One day when I get there, we'll definitely connect.
Perfect.
Okay.
So Kyle, thanks again, and just keep up with the great work. You're an awesome photographer, an awesome content creator, and we are very thankful for that.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Thank you, Kyle.